So, what we're going to talk about is different styles and different methods of making candlesticks, and everybody I know does them differently. So we're gonna make a couple. We're gonna show you a couple things. Some of these were made by Charlie. Some of these are made by me, but they're all quite unique. This one here was made by Michael Hoslick. He did a demo down here, and he made this for one of his demos. This is his demo piece. This one was probably the hardest one I've ever made. This is made out of oak that feels like it's about 40,000 years old. Feels like a rock. I think I had to sharpen about 4 times making that one in the middle of it. Very hard. And then some of these other ones Charlie made. Charlie's got a unique thing about that, and I'll let that go to Charlie, how he makes those and why he makes them the way he does. One thing they asked us on ours, I don't normally do this, but these little pieces that go in the top, they want those in there. So if they, whoever takes it home does put a candle in there, it doesn't burn down and start a fire. These are little aluminum or metal inserts. I got these from Amazon for like 50 of them for like $10 or less, $6, I can't remember. Very cheap. And there's multiple styles, multiple colors, and multiple sizes. So you can make them in any different thing you want. These are little things for a Jewish festival. So they have, I think, during Christmas or whatever. They're throwaways. They're made of aluminum foil. And when you're done with them, you can use a little tinfoil hat. So, but there are all kinds of different things you can do. And with that, I'm going to let Charlie describe his while I get mic'd up and get ready to show you how to turn a couple of them.
So I have been a student of spindle turning from John and Kevin and Sharon Ayers, who's not here tonight. I would say probably 2 or 3 things about the candle sticks, candle holders, candle whatever they are. Candle holders, all right. I have found that my experience with spindle turning comes from an old expression that an old Amway dealer used to say quite often, and that was, you plan your work and you work your plan. I found that if I didn't start out with some idea of where I was going on spindle turning, that I would always end up with firewood. So when I started to turn these, I sat down and sketched out generally the shape that I wanted, and then I marked the proportions on the piece of wood that I was turning. And in terms of inserts, I would also say that wine bottle caps make great inserts for candle holders. In fact, my wife is, that's Suzanne's role. She supplies me with those. It's It's let's see, what does that say? It says Mogan David on there. I don't know what that means. I am always hoarding scrap wood with the idea of doing spindles. And I love spindle turning for chairs and stools and all sorts of things. I've demonstrated spindle turning for you before. And what I'm going to do with these 3, and I'll continue to do others, some I will just simply spray with lacquer. Some I probably will paint different colors. Some I will spray with glue and then attach gold leaf to them. But I want to make sure that I end up with a product that whoever gets it at SWAT it's something that they will be proud of and something that they can display also. And one thing I've learned in this particular lesson is I started out trying to eyeball centering the base on the bottom. Don't do it that way. You get your center finder and mark where the center is and drill the hole and use a screw to put it in there so that it ends up being straight. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. What? Dr. Lucen is the answer. Stella Rosa Dr. Lucen, it says here. So
Mad Dog's out of the question.
it is. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, John.
All right. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear me? Yep. Can you hear me? Okay. So there's a couple, like I was saying before, there's a couple different thoughts. And one of the thoughts we want to give is your inspiration or your personality, put it in there. You've got things that you believe, ways that you want to do things. That's what should be in the candlestick. I'm here to give you some inspiration. Charlie showed you some things. I'm going to show you some things. There's just different ways to make them. Don't follow us as a rule. Just take what we do and run with it, because there's all kinds of ways to do it. We want to see your personalities in these things. And Charlie's absolutely right. You need to drill the hole first, because after the fact, your candle's going to stick like this, it's going to go like that, and it's never going to burn straight. So drill the hole first, and then use that as a guide, and that's one of the things we're going to show you. What I didn't show you is, this is one, if you want to learn how to do spindle work, go take a 2x4, cut it in little pieces, and practice until that 2x4 is gone. Cut it into pieces a little shorter than your tool rest, and then practice till your heart's content, and you will get better at spindle, guaranteed. Candlesticks is how I learned how to use the skew. I'm not going to show you the skew tonight, but it is how I learned how to use the skew. So there is a lot of lessons that we learned here by making candlesticks. This one, different than the rest of them, is two-piece. So I'll make this piece and I'll make this one. This is actually made out of a 3/4 piece of wood. So if you don't need anything special, you can go to Home Depot, get a 3/4 piece of wood, cut it up into a square, throw it on your lathe, and you can make a little base holder out of it. It's real simple to make. I'm not going to go through this tonight. I'm not going to go through a lot of the process, just some of the basics. But if you want to learn, we can have an open shop where we focus on candlesticks. We can go through this process. It's really, really easy, and it's a great learning process to go through. How many people know how to drill on the lathe? All right. For the rest of you, this is called a Jacob's chuck. Trivia question. Why is it called a Jacob's chuck? Actually has nothing to do with Jacob. So the back side of this is a Morris taper. Most modern lathes either have a Morris taper number 2 or number 3. The front side of this that holds this chuck in is a Jacob's taper. Why we call a chuck based on a taper, I don't know, but that's why everybody calls it a Jacob's chuck, because of the taper on the back of it. So you can call it a drill chuck, whatever, but it's one of those oddballs. One thing I will talk to you about drilling is make sure you get it centered. Make sure that lathe speed is turned down. Turn your lathe off, and then slowly turn your speed up. Sorry, at least it's not the microphone. So you want to drill and then back up. I can't turn the volume on that down, I'm sorry. Let's do this. All right. So you can back this out without the lathe running. But if you just drill a deep hole, you're not going to drill too hard. You're only going to drill about that deep. All right. So you're only going about an inch. All right. or deeper, but not much. You don't need to drill. But if you drill even this shallow hole all at once, those shavings are going to get caught in that drill bit, and you're going to get very hot. So drill it a little bit, back up, drill it, and back up. And that's a good practice to be in, just to make sure you don't have problems or burn the wood up. Wood gets really hot, it starts to crack, other things happen. All right, this is a piece of wood much like what Michael did. Michael did his all between centers. I'm not doing that tonight, but you want to drill it deep enough. Now, how do you hold that steady? That's what these pieces are good for. The good thing about a Forstner bit when you use them, if this doesn't fit tight around it, if you're not deep enough, the Forstner bit leaves a little dimple in the bottom, so you can still center it and keep it centered throughout the process. So if you don't drill it deep enough for this to hold on to the outside, you can still center it. But you want to keep this locked in, because I don't have a really good chuck here. It's not designed to hold a square piece. It's designed to hold a round piece. So I don't want this thing to come flying. I don't want Jim to be catching things tonight. All right. So shapes are important. Shapes are really, really important as far as personality goes. Everybody knows that I'm kind of like Moss. I got a tilted personality, so mine are always tilted. All right, we're going to take it from square to round. All right. You can round it over, put a little bead on there. I guess my time's up. All right, all right. And I'm doing things just kind of off the cuff here. We're going to have a sign-up sheet at the end of the night, kind of like the pen thing. Candlestick a month. That didn't go over very well. So, all I'm doing is finding some way to put a shape on it . What's that? Lickety split. About 2,500. Now, speaking of speed, comfort zone is where that keys. You have to run at a speed that's comfortable to you. And there's a basic, this is, a lot of people say this is a little fast for this small of a piece. I like running faster. It's the way I turn a little smoother for me. But if it's not something that you're comfortable turning that fast, slow it down. All right. So lathes are picky in that way. Just make sure you do something that's comfortable. Don't get outside your comfort zone until you're a little more experienced. The other thing I wanted to show you here is I wanted to leave this here for the simple fact that after the lathe, I can come back and do some other things like do some carving on it, sand that, make it smooth here, put a little name tag on here, all kinds of things you can do with turning a candlestick or turning in kind of a spindle. There's so many different options you can go, right? Don't just look at one thing and say, well, that's a candlestick and make everything look alike. There's thousands of ways you could do it. All individualized personality. The difficult thing here is this is going to be hard to sand. But you can, like I said, there's so many different variations you could do just to make a candlestick. You know what I didn't do? Yes, sir. That was a 7/8 drill bit. The question was, what size of drill bit did I use on this one? This is a metric variation. So 3/4 is too small, 7/8 is too big. So if you have something that's in there, a metric drill bit, measure that in metric forms. The other thing you can do is take a candle, drip some wax in there, stick it. Right? It can also be pulled out very easy, but it will stay put, stay where it is. It depends on how deep you drill it. So like on this one Michael made, yes it does. It does set up tall. And the question is, when you get them from Amazon, you want to make sure it's got that little lip on it, right? Right? So you want to make sure that if you have these, or you're going to drill it for these, get them ahead of time so you can measure the depth you need. This one, I made sure I drill it deep enough so it sets in. No. The rim will come over the top, and you want that. And one of the reasons you want that is, especially for SWAT, since it is the part of the AAW, that so that when the candle burns down, that protects that edge from the flame. So yes, you want that. In reality, when you get that candle that low, it's going to put itself out because it will not burn that low. I don't think it will. There's another option here that I didn't bring. I couldn't find them. But think about T-lights. T-lights are, I think, 1 1/4 inch, 1 3/8 in diameter. And they're only maybe 3/8 or 1/2 inch deep. Drill a T-light, and you can make a T-light holder. You can make it real small. You can make it real tall. It doesn't matter. Yes, make sure you get the tea lights before you do your, make sure you have the material you're going to use before you start. And that's a very good point. So if you're going to use inserts, get the inserts before you start. If you're going to use a tea light, get the tea light and measure accordingly. But always on a tea light, drill about 1/16 of an inch deep less than the tea light. So the tea light should set proud when it sets there, just a little bit. That way, if it does burn down or it has issues, AAW is not going to get on you about it. But what I was going to do is I got a chip here. This wood is not the best piece, but this is one option. I do not have my parting tool, so I did not bring it. So taking this off is not really an option right now, but you'd part it off, and that would be your candlestick, and it would be finished. You can also do something very straight like what Charlie does and use friction polish and finish it right there on the lathe and take it off, and you'd be completely done. Most lathe projects, you like to take them off and be out of the way. Or you can take, like I did here, and split it. If you're going to make a two-piece, put tape around there so the glue sticks, and put some putty down in here. They have the little putty that you can get at the store. It's not, don't put tape in there, but put a putty. Then when you do paint it or lacquer it, then you take the putty out and the tape, and it still has something to glue on. I purposely did not glue this on because it is a demonstration piece. Saturday, I will have some wood here for candlesticks if you all want to make them. If you all have a thought of want to get some home, use hardwood. It is really a lot better than the softer wood. Soft woods will teach you a lot, but the harder woods, as a minimum, poplar, however you say it, is a decent wood for it. It's a softer of the hardwoods. I would not suggest ebony or anything like that, but a maple or a soft maple, cherry works really good. And if you wanted to practice spindle turning, candlesticks is a really good way to do it. It makes a lot of sense. They're so versatile in what you can do. They're good gift sets. And it also practice if you want to make a set. You ever see these the Jewish sets that have like 7 candles on them? How do you make those, or 8? Some have, I'm not Jewish, so sorry. They're duplicates. How are you going to duplicate? Right? You got to make a number of them exactly alike. Candlesticks are a good way to practice. They're small, they're short, and you can practice duplicating. So there's so many different things you can do. Do we have any questions? Anybody want to? Yes.
Would you put that's finished, or would you add a different thing?
For this one, I don't know. I would probably leave it as is. Maybe round this up a little more because I'm not quite round here, but leave the base as it is. For a nice little candlestick for a decoration. Doesn't have to be very, because think about this. Candlesticks, what are they used for? Right? Besides sitting on a table, a lot of people carry them. A bigger candlestick is a good place to, well, hand holder right here. You can carry it around with you and you still have a place to set it down. There are, I think Mark said, 9 videos on the at our library on candlesticks, on variations. Some Ellie Elsevier has 2 or 3. So if you want to see a really, really good turned candlestick, he's an amazing individual. He's really good. Check those out. Yes, sir. It really depends. I use lacquer a lot of times, spray lacquer, and what I'll do on things like this, A lot of times I'll either put a little hole in here and hang it with an eyelet on a string so I can spray it and turn it at the same time, or I'll take another piece of wood if I've got several of them, and I'll put some dowels on that piece of wood so they're all sitting like this so I can spray them, right? I don't, because staining this with an off-center like this one is really hard to do and get it consistent, but you can. A stain is good, or dyes. I would use a dye first. Dyes are a little bit better. Difference between stain and a dye: a stain is a surface treatment, a dye is a penetrating. Right? So a dye actually soaks into the wood. And a dye, what's really nice, if you think about curly maple or some figured maple, you put a dark colored dye on, and if you sand it back and put a light colored dye on, you can make it a multicolored experiment. No, I just spray it, and if I really need to, multiple coats on it, I may hand sand it to get that, was it orange peel? Get the orange peel off of it, but that's all I'll do. If I do lacquer, and a lot of people, like I said, if you're doing something like this, friction polish works good. And you can do that right on the lathe. And a friction polish, if you do a friction polish, shake it up real good, apply it. I do, and you can put that on the lathe like this. I can't do it because of the square round bit here, but I would make sure it's all soaked into the wood with the lathe off, and then use paper towels. Don't use cloth. You don't want anything that can catch and pull you into it, and a cloth will pull you in. A paper towel will rip, right? So, and then you would friction polish that on there, and that would be a nice shine or the sheen, depending on whether you get glossy or semi-gloss. So it's real simple to do. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Oh. I'm going to, next demonstration I do, I'm going to have some bean bags we're going to pass out there so you can all get my attention from the corners.
Charlie,
So,
what do you got? What's your take on all this? I've already done mine.
see,
Did it again.
and just think about this. Charlie uses wine bottle stop, right? Tops. That leaves it open for so many different options. Again, he measured his opening for the wine bottle, right? Two things you want to think about. The candle size, right?
You can always melt a little wax in there.
You can, yep, you can melt a little wax in there. This kind of holds it right there. That's why I use a 7/8 bit, is the size of the candles I buy. But not all candles are equal. And that's the key. So if you get these holders, make sure you get them for the candles you want to use if you're going to use them. For SWAT, it's kind of immaterial. They're more decoration than they are anything else. But there's just options to make sure you make the fit of the candle and all that together. You had a question? It's more decorations, and what we usually find at SWAT is personalities are wide-ranging, so that means sizes, shapes are as wide as the personality or wider.
I don't think the fire department's going to let us light up 50 candles in there, actually.
The candle, if they do, they're those little electric ones with the switch. So,
No. No, I was just looking for the holders.
just the, yeah.
They can buy the candles if they want them. Am I going to do what?
So,
Your head's at.
yeah.
I don't like that idea. Why don't you guys do the 50 and 24 hours between all of you? I'll be really happy.
So here's the thought. We can wait until the week before SWAT, and we'll challenge you. No. Yeah. Yeah, so SWAT is the last full week in August, right? So that's when we really need to have it there. That Saturday morning is when we need to have these down at SWAT. We have until then, say mid-August or the August meeting, to put these together. That's when we should be collecting them. We got plenty of time. What we're going to do is take our best. So if we have 150, we'll take the best down there. But we're going to try and give a wide variety of representation. If you want open shop's a good time. If you want to practice and bring them in for show and tell, another good opportunity for some turning and learning.
Charlie, do you have off the top of your head, do you remember the 6 or 7 national leagues that are going to be at SWAT this year? I know one of them, Cindy Drozda.
You want to see an amazing turner? Look Cindy Drozda up.
Cindy will be a hard seat to find.
Yeah. If you want to look on YouTube, she's the one that does the broccoli. She turns broccoli on the net. Yeah. No, I don't think she's been here since I've been doing this. I've tried to get her several times, and it's always been booked up. She's always booked so far in advance.
She does a free web show on Facebook like every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and she does that on Facebook. Cindy Drozda. Drozda, Drosda. She's about this tall, maybe.
I think there's a Z in there.
Drozda? Okay. I think she's all of maybe 75 pounds soaking wet. Question?
When duplicating candles, we got just eyeball the comparison, or is there some way to be more exact?
All right.
Archibald, Cindy
I'll get to that in 1 second, and I will answer that question.
Baldwin Way, Tom Lohman, John Lucas, Derek Weedman, and then there's a bunch of regional demonstrators as well.
Cool.
But I haven't seen the list of that, but those are the national leagues for SWAT. Donna Frazier's, yeah.
So we have a question from the web. The chat question was, when you duplicate candlesticks, do you do it by eyeball or is there some other method to do it? And that, great question. It's the same as duplicating anything else. What you need is a storyboard. And a storyboard is basically a long strip like a ruler or anything out there that gives you dimensions of your various pieces. Draw half of your profile out there, put your dimensions on there, and you're going to measure these dimensions as you go, length apart, distance between, size, length of your beads or your coves or your other pieces. And dividers are a great thing to use. If you need some,
You can duplicate any one of these. Anything you got. You got old antiques that you like, you want to make ones like them, with spindle turning, you can learn that.
Harbor Freight has a set of calipers. I think it's less than $10, and they have inside, outside dividers, regular calipers, vernier calipers, and a depth gauge. This also has a depth gauge built into it for like less than $10. So Harbor Freight has them. They're really neat little things to. We use them here, and they're great for this kind of work. You can do measurements on the outside. You can do measurements long side. You can measure on the inside, and actually start using that measurement to duplicate. Get 2 or 3 sets. Set one at each of your different measurements, and then use that. Turn it on.
Turn it on.
And then there's something else while he's turning that on. If you want to understand what he's talking about, there's a book out there by George Walker called By Hand and Eye. 100 years ago, we didn't have accurate tape measures. Everything was by proportion. Those dividers is how they built cathedrals and everything else. They didn't measure things and figure this out. They used dividers, and that's how they got those proportions, and they did it repeatedly throughout the entire cathedral over and over again with 0 measurements, just using dividers.
So, anyway, anybody got any questions about spindles in general or candlesticks holders? Candle holders? John, you got any more?
No, actually, that's what I've got. We're going to wrap it up, but I would expect to see some in show and tell next month.